Hi guys, sorry again that you have to work alone today. Here is a short presentation about plagiarism and what does it mean to plagiarize. Now I hope that you have some idea about this from lower secondary, but it's very important that you have a clear idea about what this is and how to avoid it. So that's what this presentation is meant to help you with. So, what is plagiarism? Well, the definition is the act of presenting another's work or ideas as your own. It's very important to note that this is not a new phenomenon. This has been going on for a really long time. But of course, the arrival of the internet has changed things. It has made it much easier for you guys to plagiarize. Obviously, if I wanted to plagiarize when I went to upper secondary, I actually had to go to the library and then find a book with the information that I wanted and copy it in my text. Now, that was harder for me, but it was also quite hard for the teacher to discover whether I had plagiarized or not. So, the internet has also made it easier for us teachers to detect plagiarism. And as you know, I ran your personal essays through the plagiarism control on its learning, which is why you had to hand in there. So just some basic information about what happens if you plagiarize. So if the whole text is plagiarized, if you've just taken the text off the internet, you will get an IV, ikke vurdert, on the assignment. If only parts of your text is plagiarized, this will lead to a lower grade because there's a competence aim that says that you should use sources in an independent and verifiable way. So this, of course, shows a low competence and your grade will go down. And you may have to talk to the head of the department depending on how serious it is. And just so you know, the last one is important. You will get a letter with a warning that you will get not so good outfit. So that happens. You only plagiarize one time, and this is what happens. So we're fairly strict when it comes to plagiarism. So then it becomes very important to avoid it. Now, I know some students, they think that they have not plagiarized when they have plagiarized. So that's why I've made some tasks. So this is task 1, the one that I've called Is This Plagiarism on OneNote. I'll show you later where you find it. But this is the example, and this is the task that I want you to do after you've seen this presentation. So imagine that I've given you the task, what is the difference between football and soccer? What it says here. So I want you to explain this because why do we call it sometimes football and sometimes we call it soccer? Now let's say you don't know anything about this, so you go to the internet to find information. You find a source that you think is reliable, as it's taken from Encyclopedia Britannica, so it's a well-known encyclopedia. Now, the question is how to use this information without plagiarizing. So this is what you practice when you do the first task after you've seen this. Now, what is it that you can write without giving a source? Well, basic information such as dates or years. And here are some examples. For example, Shakespeare was born in England in 1564. So that's really just the basic facts. Or the Industrial Revolution started in late 18th century. Basic knowledge in the subject, like things the teacher has said. For example, I will probably tell you that English is the most important lingua franca in the world. So sort of basic knowledge within the subject is okay to write without giving a source. And of course, your own thoughts and experiences. And I've said, please do not write my own head as a source. I've seen this in exams and so on. Students who list my own head, my mom, as sources. Sources are only sources that I can find when I read your text. So if somebody told you something, that's not something you have to give as a source. Now, it can be really difficult to know sometimes whether you should give a source or not. And you sort of start thinking about, is this basic information, is this basic knowledge, or is it a bit more advanced? We need to give a source. A general guideline here is if you are actively using a source to find information and you use what you found in your text, then you should give the source. So even if it is, you're wondering, okay, I think this is basic information, but it was not something that I knew. I had to use a source to find this information, then you should give that source. And I usually say that you cannot, very few students give sources too often in the text. And I've never experienced a student where I had to tell them, you have to stop citing sources, you're doing it too much. So just, if you've used a source, give the source in the text, and at the end we'll practice this in class. Now, let's say that you have found information that you want to use. And, how can you do this? Well, you basically have two choices. You either use a direct quote, then you have to use quotation marks. Then the rule is that you have to give the source, or a citation as it's called, also citere kilden, directly after the quote. That's the rule. Or you can paraphrase, which means that you rewrite the information using your own words. But the important thing to remember is you still have to give the source. So even if you have used your own words, you've tried to explain using your own language, which you also have to do, you still have to give the source, because I still need to know where the information came from. So I can see it's your language, but where have you found this information? Now, here are my best tips to avoid plagiarism. So, as you can see here, there's this guy who's sort of staring at the book. Now, many students do this, and if I asked you, you would probably, almost all of you, put your hand up. You copy the source into your document. So let's say you want to write about the American Constitution, you go online, you find a text, you copy that text into a Word document, and then you start writing beneath the source. Now, this is not a good idea, because what you tend to do then is that you look at the source while you are writing, and what happens is that you will probably end up using a language that is too close to the original without necessarily intending to do so. So this is where a lot of students end up plagiarizing without actually meaning to do it. So I really recommend, do not do this. Do not copy the text into your document, but read the text carefully, look up difficult words and underline important aspects, and then write down some important keywords. And then when you've done this, so you now know the text well, you know the source, you've written your own keywords, then you put the source away. You do not do like the guy in the picture here. You put the source away and you rewrite the information using only the keywords as your help. So this way you'll be guaranteed that the sentences will be using your own language and not somebody else's. So this is what I want you to do in the second activity today, which I've called summary task. So I want you to write a summary of a text that I give you. So you find the text on the content library under writing, and here you have to read the text. It's not that long, but you have to make sure that you understand it. So look up the words you don't know, make sure you understand what the text is about, then write down 15 to 20 keywords on a separate piece of paper, and then, as I said, only keywords, no sentences. And then you have to try and write a summary of what you've read using only your keywords. And then you also have to remember that you have now given a summary of a source, so you have to give a citation in the text. So where would you have this, where would you show the reader where you've taken the information from? So that was the short presentation about plagiarism. So here's about what I want you to do today. So obviously, here's the plan. You find it under plans and info, and you obviously have checked it already, otherwise you would not watch this video. So first point is to see the video that you're watching right now, and then do the task, is this plagiarized? Now here you have to go to your own student notebook and tasks to find it. So I'm going to use Andrea as an example. So when she clicks on tasks, she will find this task here. Is this plagiarized? Now, the task is to read a source that I've given below, which is the text about the difference between football and soccer that I mentioned earlier in the presentation. So you have to read through the source, and then I have written 6 sentences. And your task is to decide which sentences you think are plagiarized and which you think are okay. So you have to mark them with okay, plagiarized, or something like that. And then I've written 2 paragraphs. that I want you to read, and I want you to consider where in the text would you insert a citation. And then you have to give the source. Now, this source has to be given this way. I'll explain that on Thursday, what ND means, for example. So here's the source. Read through this text and then read through these sentences and then write behind them, is this okay or not okay? And here is the paragraph. So where would you insert a citation? Would you insert it here? Would you insert it in the middle of the paragraph or at the end? Where would you give it? So that's the first part. And then if we go back to plans and info and the work, the second task is the one where you practice writing a summary without plagiarizing. So the task itself is under writing, but you can just click on this as well. So again, it says read through the source below, look up words you don't know, make sure you understand what the text is about. Then I want you to write down the keywords on a piece of paper and no sentences. And then you have to start writing a summary. And you see again, I've specified where you should publish this on OneNote under Avoiding Plagiarism Summary. So if we go back to Andrea again, just to show you where it is, under Tasks, here. And she hasn't written anything yet because it's almost 11 o'clock Monday evening, so that's not so strange. But this is where I wanted to publish it. So yeah, here it is, and it's not really that long. 4 paragraphs, a text about the Aborigines in Australia. So write down a summary of this, and also again, because we have to practice giving citations in the text. I know maybe some of you are used to just giving the sources at the end of the document, but that is not okay at this level. We have to insert citations in the text as well to show the reader where exactly we used the source. So decide where in your summary you would have the source, and here you can just use this as your source. This is where it's taken from. Okay, I hope that everything will go well today and that you understood these tasks. I have written the instruction, I have made this little video. So yeah, I hope everything is fine. But plans and info is where you find the work, and then you have to go to writing here to find the summary task, and then to your own area under tasks to find is this plagiarized and where I want you to publish your summary. Okay, send me a message on It's Learning if you have any problems.